Hi kids, this is Chapter 2, Lesson 4. This lesson has quite a bit of notes, and so you may have to pause. Really important that you do a good job taking notes today. The title of this lesson is also very long. It is about percents greater than 100% and percents less than 1%. So again, make sure that you do a good job taking notes, and on today's practice, you're definitely going to have to refer to today's notes. The first kind of a problem we're going to look at is right here. How do you write a percent that is less than 1 as a decimal and a fraction? So we're talking about a really small amount. Percent is out of 100, so if you had 1%, that would be 1 out of 100, and we're looking at even smaller amounts than that. The first example we will do is 0.48%. And so here's a percent that's less than 1. It's 0.48%. And we're going to write that as a decimal and a fraction. Okay, the way you change a percent less than 1 into a decimal is the decimal point jumps 2 places to the left. So right here, oh, that's a terrible looking 8. My decimal jumps 2 places to the left, and I fill in those jumps with zeros. So 0.48% as a decimal would be 0.0048. My decimal point jumps 2 places to the left. From here, from the decimal, to change it to a fraction, we are going to use our place value. Remember that that is the tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and 10,000ths. And to translate a decimal into a fraction, you say it with meaning, and then you write down what you say, something that we've done before. So for this decimal, the way I would say it would be 0 and 48 10,000ths. So that is what I'm going to write as my fraction. 48 10,000ths. Now that fraction is not simplified because I know that 4 goes into 48 and also 4 goes into 10,000. I could have also simplified that fraction with 2. They're both even, so I know that 2 would work as well. But I know that 4 is going to go into both of these, so I'm going to divide by 4. And after I divide by 4, I can calculate that. I'm going to get 12 over 10,000 divided by 4 is 2,500. And I see that both of these also could be divided by 4. Again, I could have divided by 2, but I'm going to divide by 4 just to make it a little less work. How many 4s go into 12? 3. And how many 4s go into 2,500? If you type that in your calculator, 2,500 divided by 4, you're going to get 625. So here is simplified fraction. A percent less than 1, decimal, and fraction. So that, on today's practice, read very carefully what the directions say. What are you starting with and what are you wanting to change it into? So if you have a percent less than 1, and you're changing it into a decimal and a fraction, this is what your work should look like. And you've got decimal and fraction. The next type of problem we are going to do is write a percent greater than 100. So write a percent greater write a percent greater than 100 as a mixed number and a decimal. And the problem that we're going to do for this one is 350%. So over here, I'm going to start with 350%. And my goal is to change that into a mixed number and a decimal. Okay, here is the strategy for a percent greater than 100, making it into a fraction. Remember what percent means? It means out of 100. So right away, I can change this into 350 out of 100. From here, there's a couple of different, so this is an improper fraction, but I want to change it into a mixed number. So there's couple different ways I could do this. I could simplify this right here by thinking that 50 goes into both of these. How many 50s go into 350? You can calculate that and you come up with 7. How many 50s in 100? That's 2. So I have a new fraction of 7/2, still improper. I can change this into a mixed number by doing this. How many 2's go into 7? 3 2's fit into 7, and what's left is 1. I have 1 left over. My denominator is going to stay the same. So now I've got a percent greater than 100, and there is a mixed number right there. So mixed number. Remember, a mixed number has a whole number part and a fraction, 3 1/2. I could have also done this a different way by looking at this improper fraction right here, 350 over 100, and thinking of how many times does 100 go into 350? Okay, if I was thinking like that, I would have said that 100 goes into 350 3 times, and I've got 50 left over, and my denominator would be 100. Well, then I could simplify that fraction 50 hundredths into a half. Divide both of those by 50, and we would get 3 1/2. So we would get the same thing. Just a couple of different ways to get there. Remember that anytime you have a fraction, improper or not, you can divide it to change it into a decimal. So using my calculator, right here, I'm going to do 350 divided by 100. 350 divided by 100. I type that in my calculator, and I get 3.5. So there is my decimal. Okay, so if you have a percent greater than 100, and you're trying to change it into a mixed number and a decimal, here's your strategy. So again, quite a bit going on, a percent greater than 100. If you want to make that into a mixed number and a decimal, this is your work. The next part, the next thing we're going to do is write. Again, I know that this is probably a longest note we've had. If you need to pause it, you can. Write a mixed number as a percent. Write a mixed number as a percent. So a mixed number, once again, is a whole number and a fraction. So the example we'll look at is 9 3/4. That's a mixed number. How do we write that as a percent? So the first thing that we'll do is we're going to change this mixed number into an improper fraction. To do that, I am going to use something that I call the mad face. Some kids call it the dead face. That's an X for multiply, and this is an add. And if you look at it, like a texting face right there, if you turn that sideways, it looks kind of like a dead face or a mad face. But how you use the mad face, the arrow tells you the direction to go, and it's multiply and then add. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to follow this curve, just like the smile, and I'm going to do 4 times 9 plus 3. Well, 4 times 9 is 36, plus 3 makes 39. So 9 3/4 is the same thing as 39/4. I'm trying to get to a percent. Recall that percent means out of 100. Well, I have out of 4. I want out of 100. How do I go from 4 to get to 100? I'm going to think of money, 4 quarters and $1. I'm going to multiply by 25, which means I have to multiply this by 25. Calculator that, 39 times 25, and you get 975. Now I've got a number out of 100. To make that into a percent, I just take the top number, and I can call it a percent. 975 hundredths is the same thing as 975%. So again, on your practice today, read very carefully. If it says write a mixed number as a percent, this is your strategy right here. You're going to do the mad face or the dead face, change it into an improper fraction, and then try to get it out of 100. And once you do that, whatever your numerator is, you can call that the percent. Okay, last one. Write a decimal. Write a decimal as a percent. Write a decimal as a percent. And the example we will use is 2.64. If you have a decimal and you want to change it into a percent, here is your strategy. 2.64 you take whatever your decimal is, from decimal to a percent, and you're going to multiply it by 100. 2.64 times 100, calculator that if I need to, I get 264. Now, that can then be changed into a percent. 264. 2.64 is the same thing as 264%. Again, read carefully. Oh, I hear somebody at the door. I'll be right back. I hear the math cat. Hi, Frank. Hi, buddy. Frank was at the door. He wanted to say hi. Say hi, Frank. Can you say hi? Come on. Say hi to everybody. Look, right there. There's the camera. We'll get him to say hi. Say hi, Frank. Say hi. He's purring. Can you say hi? Come on. Say hi. There we go. Okay. Sorry for that interruption. So if you have a decimal and you are trying to make it a percent, here's your work. You multiply it by 100, and then you can change that number into a percent. Again, lots of stuff going on today. Read very carefully in your workbook. What are you trying to do? Which one of these do you need to follow? Percent less than 1 as a decimal and fraction. Percent greater than 100 as a mixed number and decimal. Write a mixed number as a percent. Write a decimal as a percent. Read carefully and then follow your notes. And that's it for lesson 4. See you next time for lesson 5. Goodbye. Frank wants to say goodbye. He's still here. Say goodbye, buddy. Say bye. Can you say goodbye? Say bye.